Welcome everyone to the proposal writing webinar for IUSE proposals with the teacher education focus. I'm Betty Callinger, a Senior Project Director in the NSF IUSE program. For folks who don't know what IUSE stands for, it means Inclusive STEM Ecosystems for Equity and Diversity. As Drew mentioned to you in the chat, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. While everyone's introducing themselves, I just want to say that NSF IUSE is pleased to partner with the National Science Foundation to organize this webinar. And before I turn it over to our illustrious presenters, I just want to let you know that the recording and the slides will be available next week on our website, nsfnoise.org. You will also be notified in an email when everything is ready. Also, please note that we have closed captioning for this session. You can download and view the full transcript by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And since it's now about 3 minutes past start time, I think we can introduce our wonderful presenters today. Hope you enjoy the webinar and have lots of questions for our presenters.
So, hi, I'm Kathleen Bergin with the National Science Foundation, and as I queue up the slides here, wherever they went, there they are. Whoops. I thought I had it queued up right. Well, hi. Anyway, I'm with the National Science Foundation, and my colleague Jennifer Ellis is here as well. And we both work with all things teacher preparation in the Division of Undergraduate Education. Yes, teacher preparation is an undergraduate education enterprise. And we're so pleased that you all wanted to join us today. While we will be focusing on IUSE, that is improving undergraduate STEM education in the focused on teacher prep, everything we're going to say today is true for any IUSE proposal. So if you're really thinking about a proposal that's more associated with undergraduate education in chemistry, anything we say could apply in that way as well. This session is being recorded, so by your asking questions out loud, you're giving us permission for that. So we have a few questions that we'd like to start out with. What are you interested in doing? Yeah, you're giving up this time with us today. So you have some ideas of something you want to do. Are you looking to make changes at your institution to improve students' STEM learning engagement? Are you looking at developing and using assessments that will enhance knowledge about effective teaching and learning? Are you considering implications of any of these things in relationship to teacher preparation? These are all things you could do. So today, this is sort of a roadmap of what we'll be doing for the next 60 minutes together. We're going to talk about what you want to do. We'll talk about the program itself. We'll try to give you some tips and some resources. And by the way, there will be 3 Q&A sessions where you can unmute and ask questions. And I really encourage you to ask questions for 2 reasons. One is, even if you think you know the answer, your question will be helpful to reinforce what you know, but also it may be a question someone else has. And don't worry about giving away your bright idea. Your proposals are not in competition, although you may feel they are. The only thing that you're in competition with is your own proposal and how you write it, because we try to fund all of the really worthy, important work in the teacher prep space. So don't worry about asking a question that might give away some bright idea that you have going forward. So now this is a little attempt to make this a little bit more interactive. I'd like you to write down 3 things you've been longing to do that require financial resources. So hopefully you've had time to at least get one down. So your response is whatever innovative pre-service idea you have. Could we fund your idea? The answer is yes, we can fund your idea as long as you focus it on undergraduate STEM pre-service education and you describe it well and it's evidence-based, we can fund it. So here is what the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education program is about. And this is true for all proposals. Like I said, you could have a proposal to improve biological education and might not have anything to do with pre-service. But Jennifer and I are very interested in growing the number of awards related to teacher prep and improving pre-service education. So novel ideas, all institutions of higher education are eligible. We are very interested in broadening the participation of who is part of the work and who benefits from the work. And we want your work to build upon recent advances. So your work should mention and refer to what has already been learned in the space that you're proposing. So this deadline is for just level 2 and 3 engaged student learning proposals, as well as ICT proposals. And we want all of them, regardless of what they are, to build knowledge, to incorporate evidence, and particularly with the institutional transformational proposals, we want to build understanding about systemic change. You can adapt, you can replicate, you can develop, you can create. And that means you could develop curriculum. You can develop assessments. You can provide professional development for colleagues in the faculty at your institution in order to bring about change. All IUSE proposals, whether they're in engineering education or geoscience education or teacher prep education, have to build knowledge. So we have to learn from your work. And building knowledge, you can describe that by 2 mechanisms. You could actually have research questions and a research design, and then the attendant methodologies that would go along with that. Or you can build knowledge by having a robust evaluation of the project activities, impacts, and outcomes. You can actually do both if you prefer, but the type of work that you propose should drive whether you're going to do it as a research question focused design or whether you're going to build knowledge through evaluation. Just remember, you need to build knowledge. And of course, there's an expectation that you will disseminate what you learn. And we really are looking for people to provide us with ideas about how they intend to disseminate. That is something stronger than presenting at conferences. That's certainly a part of it, but we want you to think more creatively than that. So I mentioned before the 2 tracks: engaged student learning, institutional and community transformation. There are different funding levels. If you've applied before, you'll notice that the funding levels have gone up. Level 1 proposals are not eligible for the July deadline. Capacity building proposals are not eligible for the July deadline. Level 2 and 3, engaged student learning, are, and level 2, institutional and community transformation, or ICT, are eligible. If you're interested in the other levels, then that's a January deadline. So what can you do in the teacher prep space? Well, you can do educational research on best practices in teacher preparation. Maybe you're aware of best practices and you believe that they haven't been explored fully, particularly in certain populations, and you want to do research on that. As I said earlier, you can develop assessments and you can apply these in STEM or pedagogy courses. You can develop curricula for teacher prep. Maybe you want to transform the teacher preparation program at your institution and inform other institutions. You can do interdisciplinary research, but you can also do disciplinary research at the undergraduate level, because this is improving undergraduate STEM education. Developing STEM and STEM-related workforce, which of course includes teachers. Now, the proposals to the IUSE program regarding teacher prep should not be focused on scholarships. We have other programs that do that, but for like the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program and SM, but you can certainly do research about the challenges and the advantages and the possibilities of improving the STEM and STEM related workforce, including teaching. And of course, we're always interested in how we're going to advance a STEM literate population, and teachers are key ingredient in that. Broadening in participation, how can we bring more students from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different aptitudes and assets and abilities? How can we bring more into the teaching space? Because you know, if you've involved in teacher prep, that there is research that shows that students do better at the K-12 level when they have some teachers that look like them. You can explore co-curricular activities that might help students stay in teaching. And you can do professional development, not only for the pre-service teachers, but also for the faculty that are teaching the pre-service teachers, some of which are education faculty, but many of whom are disciplinary faculty teaching disciplinary courses that the teachers are then expected to take and translate into powerful learning experiences at the K-12 level. Now, these are just examples. There are lots of other things. So if your idea didn't fall into one of these categories, I promise you, if you write a compelling proposal, we can still fund it. Of course, technology and the use of technology is increasingly important, especially as we all move out of COVID and we all hear about AI. These are ideas for the institutional community transformation. Some of these you'll see are similar to the engaged student learning. Again, the faculty development, the pedagogy courses. But the difference here is that when you're proposing an institutional and community transformational project, you're really talking about changing a system, not just improving coursework and teaching. So now we'd like to stop for a minute and open it up to questions that you may have. I don't know whether you put any questions in the chat. I can't see the chat. I apologize.
Well, Kathleen, there were two questions in the chat that I kind of addressed in the chat, but one of them was, how is IUSE different from NOISE? And I said, hopefully by today's presentations, it would be pretty clear what the difference is. And then the other one asked, can STEM be used for STEM teacher prep scholarships? If yes, do they have the same requirements as NOISE? And I said, no, you cannot provide STEM scholarship for, and I guess in lieu of NOISE. These are for, STEM is for STEM only scholars, and how STEM is defined in STEM is actually different than STEM defined as NOISE.
Right. And back to the first question you answered, I think the fact that I said a minute ago, no scholarships, NOISE, obviously you can financially support the students. By the way, you can have an IUSE and a NOISE simultaneously. That's fine. If you have a question, you can just unmute, because I can't see if you've got your hand raised.
So Audrey, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask, or if you want me to read it, and same with Charlotte, feel free to unmute and ask the questions that you put in the chat.
I have a question. This is Dr. Motamedi from University of Florida. I am working on ideas around using AI for improving engagement in data analytics course for undergraduate. I'm wondering which level it would be appropriate to apply for. Thank you.
So the level is really focused mainly on dollars. So you need to think about how much funding do you need to do what you want to do? And that should drive what level. Because as you notice, that level 2 starts at 400. So if you need $1 million, then that's a different thing.
All right, thank you. And do you think that it's follow-up, it's fall into one of your themes that you mentioned, or it would be?
So I missed the end of it. It's, you wanted to do AI related to what?
Using AI to increase engagement of student in data analytic course that we are developing. We are
in a data analytic course.
Yes.
So that would not be specific to teacher prep, but it certainly would be allowable in the IUSE program. So if you're talking about using AI in a data analytic course, we might think about that both as an area of mathematics, but we also might think about it as an interdisciplinary thing, because you're using AI and applying it to engaging and increasing motivations in a data analytic course. It would certainly be allowable. Jennifer, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that sounds, I don't have anything to add to what you said. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else that has a question?
I had a question, and I put the question about funds to hire staff in the grant. I'm wondering, because I'm really looking at my team and wondering about the capacity that they have really on their own to do some of this work. And I'm wondering if that's possible to have a position, temporary position funded by the grant, or is that frowned on?
You can certainly use dollars to provide funding support for personnel. If it's going to be a temporary position, you might want to spend some time describing how that's the work that that person's position contributes would be necessary in the future and therefore be sustained, or how the work of that person, once the grant had accomplished its goals, would no longer be needed. So you really have to you have to unpack that in terms of what you'd want to do. So you might think about you're going to your dean and you're asking your dean for some money to fund this position, and your dean wants to know how long are we going to need to fund this position, et cetera. But you can absolutely fund personnel in the budget. That's where a lot of the IUSE money usually goes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Sure. Any other questions?
One from Charlotte, if she feels comfortable. If not, I can ask.
So my question has to do with a program that we are already doing. We are a community college and we were working with a university on a noise scholarship. And what we did was recruited 9 of our students to go to an elementary school to work with 16 students there for 10 weeks in hopes that our students would become interested in teaching and also to increase interest in STEM from the younger kids at the elementary school. So we would like to continue that program. Is that anything that NSF would fund? Because it doesn't really seem to fit into any of your groups.
We could fund that if you're going to explain what knowledge is going to be generated from it. So it's not, in other words, it can't just be about this is a really cool thing and the kids are really enjoying it and everybody likes it. But how could you study this, either with a research design or an evaluation, such that we all would learn from it and your institutions would learn from it, with the hope in the future that other resources, we're not going to fund it in perpetuity.
Right.
But we'd certainly be interested in what you can learn from this work. And there are many things that you could learn in looking at this. So I'm not going to define that, but absolutely.
We are doing assessments.
And then make sure that you link it to improving undergraduate education.
Right.
So, so of course that can be at the community college, the undergraduate education. So what will get changed because of this? Yes. Excellent. Thank you.
And we are doing assessments. That's the, because we do feel like attitudes would change, as well as, like one student actually found she didn't really like teaching, which was not what
That's
I
a
hoped
good
for,
thing.
but at least she didn't waste her time. So,
Right.
so there's I think a lot that we can look for, and we are looking at assessment pieces.
Okay. Other questions before we go on? Again, I really hope that you will ask as many questions as you can now so that as you move forward, you can put together a compelling proposal. So I think with that, we'll move on. So here's some specific things that are required. We do want to see collaboration. Particularly, we're interested in collaborations between disciplinary faculty, which can be instructors or faculty or professors. Different institutions have various labels, but we are interested in seeing them work together. We're interested in departmental and institutional administration being involved, especially if you're going to be looking at an ICT, an institutional and community transformation, because without administrators, you're probably not going to get very far. And we certainly want to see collaborations with education researchers, particularly in the teacher prep space. The elements that all proposals to the IUSE program will need to address, and you'll see this in section 2 of the program description in the solicitation and category C, just to orient you when you're looking back at the solicitation. The knowledge base for the project. So again, evidence-based, what are you building upon? The project evaluation, and that can be a feedback loop using an advisory, or can actually be an external evaluator, but you have to have a plan for that. If you are doing a research project, you obviously need relevant research questions and a design. Again, a dissemination plan that goes beyond the usual kind of, we'll present papers at NARST or whatever. Not that that's not a good thing, that is, but we want more than that. And then sustainability. So you're going to do this work, you're going to find out things, what's going to be sustained. And that's not to say that everything has to be sustained, but what will be sustained such that undergraduate STEM education is improved. The engaged student learning focuses on, obviously, improving student learning. And in the case of what we're talking about, the learning of the undergraduates who are going to go on to be teachers. And any supports for instruction, and again, that can be curriculum, it can be assessments, it can be professional development, anything that is going to advance the instruction. You want to engage students, improve their learning, and improve what they are doing. You can use a range of approaches. We don't tell you what approaches to use. So novel technologies are fine. Faculty professional development, which I've mentioned more than one time, because I think it's really important. Discipline-based research can be part of your work. You do want to have metrics to measure what you're doing, and that may be something you need to develop. The institutional and community transformation, again, is focusing beyond a small area. So you're talking about transforming or changing things within your whole department, or within departments, teacher preparation departments across a number of universities that are coming together to work together. You're talking about systemic change. So you're going to need a theory of change. And you can use lots of approaches. You can be looking at transforming high enrollment courses, because there's some research that may show perhaps they're not as effective, or there are more effective ways to do high enrollment courses. Accessibility and sustainability. There are lots of changes going on at colleges and universities right now. You can be examining those, you can be proposing those, you can be part of those. And common elements across these that will support students that have been marginalized, students who have aptitudes, but the system has not been set up to take advantage of the assets those students bring to the STEM disciplines. You really do, in the ICT space, need to be talking about systemic change, providing the theory of change that your project is using, referring to the research literature, and keeping in mind that transforming higher education is a very complex project because it's a complex system. By the way, you need references to research literature, whether you're doing an engaged student learning project or whether you're doing an ICT project. So I just wanted to underscore that. So I want to talk for just a quick second about scale, scope, and funding, because we really kind of had that question a minute ago. Like which level should I go for? So scale involves the number of students, faculty, or departments or groups. So that's going to help tell you something about the money you need. The scope, what all are you going to be doing? And are you trying to transform? Or are you trying to bring about change in the engagement, as some people mentioned? That's the scope of your project. And those two things, scale and scope, will inform the financial request that you make. So do you need to ask for 400,000 or do you need 850,000? And so you'll build your budget based on what you're trying to do, how many people are going to be involved, how long is it going to take you to do this? What knowledge are you building? And what do you need to build that knowledge? So, by the way, the reason I pause is that some of this Zoom window is covering up my slide and I can't see everything. Whoops, I didn't want to go there. You do want to broaden and deepen information. And so you can do various kinds of studies, but you can also adopt other people's work and then do it in a different setting and studying it and see, do you get similar results, or do the populations you're working with give you different results? You can do this around curriculum materials, curriculum design, curricular design, the organizational culture, the climate, certainly of your institution or of your department. We do support replication studies. We do want to see the work of others propagated, but we want to learn while you're doing that. And you see on this slide, and again, you're going to get the slides, a URL that can help you with replication and reproducibility educational research. So now we have a set of questions that we want you to answer. And I believe a poll is going to come up. There it is. So we want you to take time to answer these questions, please. Do all proposals have to have a research component? And funds for STEM curricular development, programmatic pathways, learning resources, assessment instruments, and faculty development receive funding? I won't read all of these out to you because you can read them, but please answer them. Okay, here's the results. Hopefully. Okay, I'm not able to see the results.
So Kathleen, I can kind of go over it for question one. About 73% of the audience said it's true.
Okay, let's go look at and see. All proposals must have a research component, and you said what percentage said it's true?
73%.
I'm not doing a good job teaching today. They don't all have to have a research component. They all have to generate knowledge, and they can generate knowledge either through a research component or they can have a robust project evaluation. So keep that in mind. Funds for STEM curricular development, programmatic pathways, resources, assessment instruments, and faculty. Can those be funded? What'd they say, Jennifer?
95% said true.
Well, we got that one. All right, golden. Proposal may focus on both STEM and non-STEM majors. Now, I never said anything about this.
And that's probably why the answers look like they do. So 45% said true, and of course, 55% said false.
So it can certainly focus on both, or one or the other, as long as STEM is part of the equation. Because you know that at your institutions, you have many students that are not majoring in a STEM area, but they've got to take STEM courses, and we want to develop a STEM literate population. So you could focus totally on non-STEM majors, but the focus would be on developing STEM understandings and perspective. So yes, you can focus on those students. Proposals may focus solely on STEM teacher preparation. What we get here?
Same results of the other question, but kind of in the reverse. So 55% said true and then 45% said false.
The answer is true. It can focus solely on STEM teacher preparation. If you want to put in a proposal for engineering education, you can put in one for that. If you want to put one in for mathematics education, you can put in one for that. But you can also have a proposal that focuses solely on STEM teacher preparation. By the way, that can be of elementary or secondary teachers. Proposals should demonstrate a solid grounding in relevant literature on teaching and learning.
100% true.
All right. Proposals should increase knowledge about effective STEM. I can't read it. STEM education through posing one or more research questions or through evaluation of project activity impacts or outcomes.
100% true.
Okay, now we got this one correct, but it's sort of different than the one we got wrong earlier about it having to be a research. So this is true because you're generating knowledge. Only universities and colleges may submit a proposal. I actually don't think I spoke to this. What we get?
So this one reflects as such. 36% said true and 64% said false.
So the answer is false because all categories of the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide, affectionately known as the PAPG, are eligible to apply for this. Now, we usually talk about institutions of higher education being applying because this is about improving undergraduate STEM education. But other entities could apply, but they'd obviously have to have a connection to and demonstrate how in their proposal that they were going to be improving undergraduate STEM education. Was this in the poll or not? I don't think it is.
No, it's not a poll, but just they can even put it in the chat if they so choose.
Okay, do you want to pick it up from here or you want me to do this one more?
You can do this one more, or we can kind of do it together.
Okay, which of the following may receive funding? So stop for, you're not going to do a poll on this one. Stop for a second and think about this one. Okay. What can we fund here? Which of these, it's okay to fund them. Okay, you have an answer in your head. You've read all four. You picked out the one you thought no, or you picked out the one you thought yes, or you picked out all of the above. So all of these are eligible for funding. All right, you don't have to do all of these, but all of these are eligible for funding. And with that, I'm going to hand the baton over to my colleague, Jennifer, who works with me in the teacher prep space.
Kathleen, we can advance this. Yeah. So basic perspectives for IUSE EDU projects. Their projects should be both evidence-based, as we discussed, and knowledge generating. And what do we mean by evidence-based? Some of the things you should be asking yourselves and your team is the project building on prior work? What will be learned from the planned project, the planned conduct of the project? So we're looking at knowledge generating. And for the perspective, is it okay for IUSE projects to serve the PI's institution, but they should also serve all of us by providing useful knowledge for broad constituencies of educators? So really thinking about the field and what the field can learn from your work as well, and how can this work help advance STEM teacher preparation? And so that leads us to our next session for our Q&A. So feel free to unmute and ask away. So Wu-Chin, do you mind asking, or would you prefer me to read it?
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
We are thinking about collaborating with our PDS, which is our partner school district. And because that our students, teacher and student do engage in co-teaching with these in-service teachers. So would it be allowed for us to do partnership with the school district?
Yes, I mean, that's the nature of the work that most of us do in STEM education is partnering with school districts. So yes, that's encouraged.
Yeah, because I saw that the presentation only said that the proposal encourage collaboration with like faculty, instructor, and staff. And I was just wondering about what happened, what if we partnership or collaboration with in-service teachers?
And so,
that-
oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
well, I was gonna say that's a really good point, and in the future, we'll think about updating that slide. The language that's on that slide is directly out of the solicitation.
Mhm.
But you can certainly partner with any entity. And the thing that you do want to make sure when partnering with a school district is that there is a strong pre-service aspect.
Right.
Sometimes you want to help a district with professional development, but that wouldn't change anything in undergraduate STEM education. Great question. Thank you for it.
Thank
That's
you.
all I say is just basically making sure you remember that it is IUSE, and IUSE, the U is undergraduate. So-
Undergraduate. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions that you have at this time?
So just please be encouraged. We'll have another time for questions, but to ask questions, because as we just saw with the last question, we can actually improve our own presentation when you ask those kinds of questions. So please don't be reticent in that. So we'll move on. Maybe?
Yeah.
If my clicker will, there we go.
So thinking about some tips for success. Successful IUSE proposals, they build on what is known. Summarizing published literature and defining a starting point that extends the prior work is a viable project. Include a well-designed plan to gather data. That's really essential, making sure it's very clear to the reviewers as well that it's something that's well thought out and that you actually have the infrastructure to collect the data and to analyze it as well. Specify the methods of analysis that will be employed to answer the questions that are posed. That's very helpful to make sure it's just really clear. Include mechanisms to evaluate the success of the project. And as Kathleen mentioned previously, having an evaluation plan is essential. And do you have an external evaluator? Do you have an advisory board? And just simply saying I have an advisory board isn't sufficient. What role is that advisory board going to play? How is that going to help with the iterative evaluation process? Really describe those mechanisms, and it's not even an either or. So some projects have an external evaluator as well as an advisory board. So really think about what would be the best fit for your project to really help support it and give the feedback to ensure that it is successful at the end. Explain how findings and materials will be shared, and really thinking through what your dissemination plan is going to look like. And again, on the slide that I first started on, thinking about how can you really spread the word to the field to really help enhance the field of STEM teacher preparation. Address the sustainability of project efforts. And so these projects are 3 years. And so how can your project live beyond the 3 years of funding? And what will be modeled and still implemented on your project post-funding. Collaborate as needed with other investigators, institutions, or communities, as mentioned, and especially in the work that is done in STEM teacher preparation, it's almost implied that you're going to be collaborating with a school district or a school, and making sure that it's very clear who those collaborators are. And make sure the intellectual merit and broader impacts are obvious. As you know, or for those of you who are familiar with the merit review process at NSF, those are some of the areas that you're going to be evaluated on. And so you don't want your reviewers to have to guess, is this their intellectual merit or is this the broader impacts? It should be very clear and obvious that this is what it is that you're really focusing on to help with that process. So with the merit review considerations, that's what we're really focusing on. Intellectual merit. It's in bold for a reason. Broader impacts are in bold for a reason. So what is the potential for the proposed activity to advance knowledge and understanding within its own field or across different fields? So what will we learn from this project and the benefit to society and the greater, even beyond just your campus or just a few students, but what is the true benefit, how you're going to advance the desired societal outcomes, and who will be affected and impacted by this particular initiative that you're proposing. To what extent does the proposed activity suggest and explore creative, original, or potentially transformative concepts, and really making sure it's clear to the reviewers and of course to the program officers how this is a novel and innovative approach to really enhancing STEM teacher preparation. So with the merit review principles, all NSF projects should be of the highest quality and have the potential to advance, if not transform, the frontiers of knowledge. And so really looking to see, should NSF contribute more broadly or does this particular project contribute more broadly to achieving societal goals? Is it the meaningful assessment and evaluation of NSF projects should be based on appropriate metrics, keeping in mind that likely correlation between the effect of broader impacts and the resources provided to implement projects. And so really don't overlook the power of assessment and evaluation and the role it can play in your IUSE project and the proposal as well. For the proposal, you have your cover page, your table of contents, and your project summary. And typically when we have those who are interested in submitting, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if this is a viable project. I would like to meet with a program officer to discuss it. This project summary is what we normally get and what we normally call the one pager. And so it is a summary, and you give us a little bit about your intellectual merit and your broader impact. And so if you're interested in submitting your IUSE proposal, you're not really sure, and you want to kind of have a consultation with us or just a brief Zoom meeting, 20-30 minutes. This is what we mentioned when we say the one pager, that it's really your project summary. So feel free to email Kathleen or myself, and we will love to have a meeting with you. And there's others who are in the STEM IUSE, STEM teacher prep IUSE team that we could also share it with. So don't feel like you have to email both of us. And if we don't have the capacity at the moment to do it, and we know the proposals are due soon, we will also include our other colleagues who are helping in this effort. Your reference cited, making sure that your reference cited does match up well with your project description, so people don't have to search and say, oh, they have it here, but it's not listed here. So in your 15 pages, we know that sometimes for some, initially when you're first writing NSF proposals, 15 pages, that's a lot. And as the more you write NSF proposals, you're really like, oh, I wish they would give us 20. We don't. It's 15 pages, and making sure that you hit everything and it's very explicit is really what's important in your project description. Your bio sketches, your budget and budget justification, and making sure those two align together, that your budget and the budget justification is very easy to see what you're including in the budget and the why in which you're doing that. Current and pending support, facilities, equipment, and other resources, and then also your supplementary documentation. Your letters of collaborations are important to use there. If you're using an external evaluator, making sure that their bio sketch is included and the supplementary documentations, and then your list of your project personnel. Data management plan is important, and these are documents, especially the data management plan is not something that you should just do and just kind of rush through. Really think through what is the type of data that you're going to be using, and how are you going to keep it secure, all those different types of things. Make sure you include that in the data management plan. If you're going to use a postdoc or include a postdoc in this project, make sure you're including your postdoc mentoring plan. And then the collaborators and other affiliations information, making sure you submit that as well. And referring to the PAPG for all of if there's some things that you're not really sure of, and working with your Office of Sponsored Programs is another great resource. As I mentioned in the project summary, you have your project overall, and it's typically a paragraph or two, your intellectual merit statement, and your broader impact statement. So each proposal has to include that, and make sure you label them as such. Again, you don't want anybody to have to guess, is this their intellectual merit? Is this the broader impact? And the 15-pager, what do you want to do? Why you want to do it? How you plan to do it? How you know it will be successful, and what benefits can occur if the project is successful. Project objectives, explicit and expected significance, discussing the relationship of the work to the present state of knowledge in the field, as well as to work in progress, as well as work in progress by the PI under other support. And so making sure if you have other NSF support that is period, and then especially NSF support that is complementary to the work, that you provide us with some update on that. What did you do with the previous NSF funding? Know that if you've never received NSF funding, that's not a negative thing. You've got to start somewhere. And so if this IUSE STEM Teacher Prep is your first start, then feel free to share any other work that you've done that is complementary to this work, that would help build on the knowledge that you've already established. Describe the general plan of work in terms of project activities, and where appropriate, provide a clear description and examples of experimental methods, procedures, and interventions. Must include a section labeled broader impacts to make sure it's very clear and how you're going to really expand the work beyond just your campus area. Okay. Preparing a competitive proposal. You start with a start, and starting with a start is with a really good and novel idea. And that may be really looking at the true needs of your STEM teacher preparation program. Is it in the methods courses, or is it, we really found some barriers to entry in this one chemistry course that is just really preventing students from being able to matriculate through. And so even with a course like that, will it help STEM teacher preparation, STEM teacher prep students? Yes, but it will also help, other majors as well. So that you may want to look even more collaboratively in spaces like that. Communicate clearly, spell check, grammar check, really readability, waiting till the 11th hour and then having somebody edit it may not be the best idea. Work ahead as best you can to get other eyes on it as well as yours. Making sure you address the two merit review criteria that we've stressed before. Make sure it's clear what your objectives are, the questions, and how you're going to evaluate them. Having plans on carrying out the proposed work, and give specific examples of how you're going to carry out and who is going to carry out that work is also helpful. Ground the project in relevant and appropriate literature, and making sure you cite it accordingly. Get appropriate experts on board. So if it's co-PIs, senior personnel, advisory boards, and explain their expertise and how they can best support the project. Don't leave it up for the reviewers to determine what role a person is going to play and why they've been added to the team. It should be very clear, they actually they're going to focus on this, and they have this particular person who's going to focus on that aspect. Ask colleagues in and out of your field to read and critique your proposal. Okay. And so there are some new requirements for listing of the project personnel, so make sure you do that. The name, role, and institutional affiliation, making sure you include the project staff, advisory board, evaluator, consultant, and collaborators. You do not need to include graduate, undergraduate students, nor do you need to include personnel yet to be named. Letters of collaboration, not letters of support, so making sure you understand the distinction between the two. And then bio sketches for additional personnel, your evaluator, and any consultants. The PAPG is your friend, and we'll use the newest one, which is in the NSF 23. Test drive your research.gov and making sure that that's working well, and making sure your sponsored research office knows that you plan on submitting. I know the summer months, sometimes things get tricky with who is on and off campus and who's available, making sure that there's somebody there to push the button when the button needs to be pushed and not calling us the day after the button needed to be pushed to say that somebody was on vacation. So making sure during this time that you're really planning strategically on how you're going to submit this particular proposal in July. Follow page and size font limits, cite, and making sure everything is aligned as you cite. And I mentioned most of these elements before. So there are some resources, and as mentioned, you'll have access to these slides, and so you'll be able to use these hot links to click and review things accordingly. And again, we are here as program officers to have some 20-minute, 30-minute conversations with you about your ideas if you think that would be helpful. So there's some complementary programs in the STEM teacher prep area. We've talked about noise in the past, and during this presentation, there were some questions about what's the difference between noise and IUSE, and one of the areas that we're focusing on. If you like doing research in STEM teacher preparation, looking at retention and recruitment and different efforts and really retaining teachers, then maybe a noise track 4 is a good way, looking at the research aspect of things, or just looking at noise in general with having more work in that field and producing more noise scholars, which is on the undergraduate level, or noise fellows, which is on the graduate level. EHR core research is another area that you may want to explore, and ATE, advanced technological education, may be another one that all fall under the EDU umbrella that focuses on teacher preparation aspects. Remember, expectation for knowledge generation is that is an expectation for IUSE. All IUSE EDU projects are expected to increase knowledge about effective STEM education. This may be achieved through posing one or more research questions that will be answered through the course of the study, or through evaluation of project activities, impacts, or outcomes. And so we also provide funding for workshops and conferences. So if the work that you're doing is around this type of work, you're thinking, oh, you know what, I would love to do a pre-conference workshop on such and such, or we would like to host a workshop, be it in person or virtual, around these areas, feel free to contact us, and we will, you can send us the same kind of a one-pager, and we'll discuss what does that look like. There's a rolling submission on that, and I put that with an asterisk. There's other times we would prefer you to roll them in than others. So if you're interested in submitting a workshop and conference proposals, please let us know, and we will start having those conversations with you as well. Kathleen, is there anything you'd like to say on that, or just go right to the Q&A?
Well, I want to go to the Q&A, but I also want to make sure people understand the level 2 ESLs, engaged student learning, are only 3 years, but level 3 are 5 years. So earlier the comment was made about them all being 3 years. So you can, there are 3 year, there are 5 year. It depends on what you're trying to do. And I know we're technically out of time, but we can stay on and answer questions, and we'd really like to answer your questions now if we can. So if you have a question, please unmute and ask it. And if you have to leave us, just know that we really appreciate all of you that joined us today, and these materials will be available, because I know it's a lot of information, and going through it at your own pace may make life a little bit easier. So any questions? Are you seeing anything, Jennifer, in the chat, or?
No, I'm looking, and I don't see anything other than the survey that we want to make sure everybody does take. Can community college be the leading institution?
Absolutely. You're in the undergraduate STEM education space. In fact, for many of our students, particularly students that come from diverse backgrounds, that's where they start out. And so we really want to see proposals from community colleges. And again, they can focus in IUSE on any of the STEM disciplines, but they can also focus on teacher prep. And we do know that we have community colleges who are playing in the teacher prep space.
So April has a question about, is a combo of quantitative and qualitative, can data be used acceptable? Yeah, we love mixed methods, but you know, if quantitative helps you address your questions, and or qualitative or a combination of it, really, I don't think we have a one size fits all. You really allow your, in my opinion, your research questions to dictate which methods would work best. And so, and then whatever types of evaluation, your evaluation plan should dictate it, but there's not a, you know, you've got to do one or the other, or a combination of both.
I have a question, if I could ask another unrelated
Certainly.
question to my first question. I have several ideas on STEM that I'm trying to pursue all at the same time. So one of the problems at a community college is sometimes we get students who are interested in STEM fields, but they're behind academically. And so we're trying to get them caught up. But the problem is then when they hit like a science class, they need a lot of extra support in order to be successful. So they might be interested, but they lack the experience to be successful, or the academic background. Is it possible to do some sort of programming, to fund programming to get those students like the additional help they need so that they can be successful? Because like,
So-
does that make sense?
You would describe what that additional help is going to be. And it could be co-curricular kind of things. It could be a bridge between high school and your community college. There's a lot of work that has gone on, some more productive than other, in because mathematics courses were keeping them behind. And so there's research that shows that putting people through not productive math courses and they don't get any credit, that just is not a good mechanism. So what mechanism are you going to propose? So absolutely, we can fund creative ideas that get at that are either curricular, as in changing the nature of how courses are taught, or co-curricular. Are there other kinds of supports that you realize that your students need in order to do those things? So no, we'd love to see that.
And I think there could be. There's nothing more discouraging than to see someone's like interest in science like get squashed because they're not ready. Does that
Well,
make sense?
a few years ago, I saw a community college that made one change that made a huge difference. I'll tell you what the one change was. They noticed that a lot of students didn't get signed up for the class in time to be there for the first class. So they started out 3 or 4 days behind. So that particular community college went to a rolling first day of class. So lots of people take the same course, but the same course did not all start on August 10th. Some of them started on September 3rd. So you could, and all of a sudden these kids were not behind because they hadn't missed the first 2 weeks. So
Yes.
I'm just saying, I'm not telling you to do that.
Yeah.
I'm saying there are little bitty,
Mhm.
what I know that was a lot, not a little bitty, there was a lot of challenge, but there are things, that's one thing that an institution did and turned things around.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you.
Other questions?
I don't see anything in the chat. Oh, just when I said that.
Okay, I'll let you ask the question in just a second, but I want to make sure people know that you invited anyone to send us a one-pager, and if we can't get to it, we'll try to share it with one of our other colleagues that works in the teacher prep space. And that is absolutely true. What I'm about to say is for Kathleen. If you send it and I don't respond within 2 business days, and there's no out of office message, then send it again. And if I still don't respond, send it again. I get behind on my emails. I hate it when I find one 3 weeks old. I'd rather you sent me 3 emails than, and that'll actually be helping me. So Jennifer, what is the question?
It was actually more of a statement, so that would just kind of agreeing what you were saying about, the transforming. We found that incorporating undergraduate research programmatically improves student success, even for students that struggle. In fact, some of the BC students transform into our strongest science students.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. Thank you. Anything else? Anything from our AAAS colleagues?
Just want to thank everyone for coming, Kathleen and Jennifer, for presenting. And I'll say it one more time, the slides and the archive will be available next week. And we have 3 more webinars coming up. Tracks 2 and 3, track 4, and the research experiences in STEM settings webinar, but we'll be sending out another announcement. Thanks again, everyone.
Right, and so what Betty's referring to is NOIS, the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program that many of you may be interested in. Some of you already have one. I noticed a few names, but remember, you can play in both of these sandboxes in the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education as well as NOIS. So thank you so much. And thank you, Jennifer, for being a great colleague along with me.